Good morning, everybody. I'm Arshia Khan. I'm professor and director of graduate studies for the computer science department at University of Minnesota, Duluth. I hope that echo wasn't me getting too close to that. Anyway, it's an exciting session, mostly because I love robots. And I want to let everybody know what we are doing in this area in terms of research, in terms of deployment, in terms of connection with the actual user community. So can robots combat loneliness? If you have seen the New York Times article by John Leland on me, this was the picture from there. That is actually our associate dean for the Swenson College of Science and Engineering. That's Dr. Martin, Dr. Penny Martin. And she's playing with Pepino. Everybody can hear me clear? All right. So they're going to interrupt in the middle, so sorry about that. So it won't advance. There you go. So Deckers is my lab. That's where I do all my research, and it stands for Dementia and Elderly Care, Robotics, and Sensing. So most of my work is oriented towards robotics, wearable sensing, spatial sensing, elderly care, and dementia. So if you would have attended the previous panel, and the panelist from Google was talking about COCO, this is the first version of COCO, I would say. And most of my research is in dementia. So here's my team. And by team, I mean my robots, too. So you can see there's several graduate students. All these are my graduate students. They're RAs. And typically, in the field of computer science, there's about 12% women. So I'm a big advocate for women. And if you can see my team, it's 50% women. I do a lot of work in encouraging women in computing, and especially robotics is an excellent field for women to be exposed to computing fields. Because women like to see impact. What is the impact of my work? And they can see the actual impact here, rather than something abstract. So I've got lots of robots in my lab. If anybody wants to come and visit, you are welcome to visit Decker's lab. Now, by profession, I'm an engineer, computer engineer, PhD, and a professor. So I teach computer science, but where does my medical knowledge come from? I work with a lot of clinicians who give me the knowledge and then who give me the background to help me develop what I develop. So here's some of my collaborators. Cardiothoracic surgeon, Dr. Mary Boylan. She was the first one I collaborated with on a project to help people get out of bed after open heart surgery. Because nurses struggle to help, especially heavier patients, out of bed. They injure their backs, they injure their knees. So what we did was we programmed a robot to just help gently assist people out of bed after open heart surgery. Cardiologists, ethicists, because a lot of my work involves ethics. People often ask me, is this ethical? Should you be doing this kind of work? Well, the ethicists on my team guide me with that kind of work. I've got epidemiologists, mechanical engineers, because there's a lot of mechanical engineering that happens in robot. We are actually in the process of designing and creating a robot in our lab that would be humanoid. So we have mechanical engineers working with us. Neuropsychologists, nurse, occupational therapists, psychologists, physical therapists, dietitians. So all of these people work with me. I've got a really wonderful team. We collaborate very well. Some of the projects that involve robotics are here. Dementia and elderly care. That's the biggest chunk of my research and all my robotic deployment. Second is children with autism spectrum disorder. We've seen some wonderful results when we've used this little guy on helping children with communication disorders. So the children feel like they can communicate better with a robot than a human. They're more open. They feel like that's a friend. They feel like they can share better rather than a human being who may be judging them. So we get really excellent results with this little guy. His name is Peppino, by the way. Cardiac rehab after open heart surgery, I talked about the project with Dr. Mary Boylan. And then bipolar disorder management. I've done a lot of work in that area also. Emotional arousal, we are able to artificially change the emotion of human beings. And we've done lots of tests, clinical trials in our lab about that and got some excellent, excellent results. And there's several things. So what is unique about my research? There's a lot of people who are working in robotics, right? Why are my robots alone out in nursing homes today? The reason being, I not only use robotics, I combine robotics with wearable sensors and spatial sensors. So when my robots react to something, they are actually reacting to data that they are gathering from these spatial sensors. So they learn from the behavior of the residents. So it's customized solutions that we develop. So they learn from the behavior of the person, what the person does during the day, and then make recommendations as the day goes by. I'll give you an example of sundowning. Sundowning is a big issue in nursing homes. If any of you are familiar with nursing homes and how residents react to sundowning, it's a big problem, you know. So when we put on our wearable sensors and we have our spatial sensors, we can actually predict when a sundowning episode is going to occur. So we can actually preempt that episode by having the robot interfere and do something to distract them. So that's how my technology works. I involve wearable sensors, several kinds of wearable sensors, and spatial sensors as well. So that's what is unique about my research. Some of the current projects that I'm working on is I designed something called an intelligent dementia-friendly living space. We are in the process of patenting this, and it's a space where the person living in there does not need to know technology. The technology is working in the background to help them maintain their quality of life. They don't need to know how to use an iPad. They don't need to know how a wearable sensor is working. They don't need to know how a spatial sensor is working. I'll give you an example. Like we have sensors in the chair. So from the sensors that are in the chair, from the center of gravity, we can figure out the mood of the person. We can read the emotion using the robot, and we can actually gauge how they are doing emotionally, physiologically at that moment. So there's a lot of information that's coming from these sensors. I have designed an intelligent pillbox. So the pillbox actually can dispense medications, inform the clinicians, or inform the robot. The robot can go and tell the person, hey, John, it's time for you to take your medication, you know. And then the robot can also monitor if the person is actually taking the medication or not. And then tell them, you know, well, you really didn't take it. It fell out of your palm, and it's lying on the ground. So, and then we are using the wearable sensors to track them physiologically. So supposing they took a blood pressure pill and the blood pressure hasn't dropped, that means the person either hasn't consumed the pill or they need to change their medication. So all that is being monitored through our robots and the wearable sensors. There's something that I'm working on is called a gossip bot. So what do elderly love to do? All of us love to do, right? We love to gossip. We love to talk about people. So why not use gossip to encourage them to do things that they have done in the past and they're not doing in the current present? So for example, let's say, you know, there is resident X, and resident X used to love to play chess. And now, you know, living in the nursing home, doesn't get an opportunity and doesn't have the desire to actually go out and play chess with somebody. So our robot would approach them. We would create an imaginary persona of a person very similar in characteristics to this person X. And so the robot would approach and say, hey, you know, I was playing with, Tim from room 204. And he actually is really good at chess. And he beat me in chess. Can you believe that? Oh, I got beaten up. What do we do? You know, how are you at chess? I heard you used to play chess too. How about we play a game of chess? So that's like a gentle encouragement to do the things that they used to do. And also some sort of competitive attitude we are trying to bring in there. So all these things, the gossip can be really used for those kind of things. So we are working on that project currently. So here's my intelligent dementia-friendly living space. I need to add more pictures to this. I apologize for that. But you can see one of my graduate students. He's sitting at the desk, and we have elderly-friendly dementia puzzles right in front of him, and he's playing with those puzzles, and the robot is interacting with him and telling him, if he did it right or not, and the robot is essentially joking with him and teasing him because he didn't get the puzzle right. So, and there's a sensor under that blue mat that you see that is actually working, engaging. He's wearing a wearable sensor on his right wrist that is tracking his physiological data. So the idea is technology works in the background. The person does not need to know the technology. My research is in being proactive rather than reactive. Rather than saying, oh, this person is having a sundowning episode, we need to do something about it, let's predict when it's going to happen and preempt it. Do something about it. That's what we should use technology for. So there's a big problem, right? We are all aware of this problem, correct? So growth in elderly population. Currently, there's about 48 million people who are above 65. So by 2050, we are going to have 88 million people who are going to be above 65. Increase in care provision needs. 12.7 million people by 2050 will have Alzheimer's or some form of dementia. Currently, there are 6 million people who have dementia. So,
hello.
Hi. 355 billion was spent in care provision for dementia in 2021. We are predicting by 2030, we are going to be spending like 1.3 trillion or something crazy like that. 256.7 billion is provided by unpaid workers. Did you know there is a large number of people who are unpaid, who are family members, who are providing care to people with dementia? So let's look at the global impact here a little bit. Every 3 seconds, somebody is diagnosed with dementia. Did you know that? It's really scary. The total estimated annual worldwide cost of dementia in US dollars is 1.3 trillion. By 2030, it's supposed to go up to 2.8 trillion. So in 2019, across the world, we have 55 million people with dementia. By 2050, we are going to have 139 million across the globe. So this is not the only problem. 75% of the dementia cases are not diagnosed. That is like currently 41 million people. That's a lot of people. So this is a growing problem. We need to address it. Women in dementia is another problem. This is another area of research that I dabble in. I'm not going to talk about this, so I can give you all an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the session. So what are my objectives of research? It's twofold. Early detection, maintaining the quality of life. So by early detection, I mean we are able to predict. For instance, 25% of the people who have had some sort of cardiac event go on to have vascular dementia. So what are the first signs of dementia for vascular dementia? Change in gait. So if we track their gait over a period of time, we can say whether the gait is changing, and if the gait is changing, then we can do something about it, and we know that person is going to have vascular dementia. So there's so much we can do about dementia. Instead of just going for a simple physical every year, why not have a gait analysis every year? There's so many other things that we can do in order to prevent and actually find out the risk for dementia. So what are the risk factors? There's lots of risk factors. The one that I focus on is social and cognitive engagement. So that's where the robots come in, social and cognitive engagement. So currently, I have a, she loves to interrupt. So we are actually deploying humanoid robots. These two appear in each of the nursing homes, in 8 nursing homes across the state of Minnesota. So the areas that I'm working in are emotional and social well-being, cognitive well-being, and physical well-being. For emotional and social well-being, the robot can tell jokes. It can make people laugh. We are monitoring it using the physiological data. Did you know that one of the requests that I got from the elderly, what they wanted the robots to do was tell dirty jokes? So actually, we programmed them to tell dirty jokes. So we had one of our faculty members from the drama department actually sit down with some students and write the jokes for us. So we have some built-in stand-up comedy for Paprika. She's Paprika, by the way. I don't know why I'm not able to advance. OK, so let's see what Monarch has to say about my robots. Oops, sorry.
Monarch is so excited to be getting robots, humanoid robots, in our facilities. We are the first in the country to get these. Monarch has partnered with University of Minnesota Duluth and Dr. Khan. Come check them out. We are so excited to have Pepper and friends coming to our facilities this summer. Monarch robots, check it out.
I'm trying to advance to the next. So here, actually, we missed. I'm going to give you some demos of what our robots can do. So the first demo is a navigation app that system, not an app, that we developed for Paprika and Paprika-type robots. Essentially, what we do is when we go to a nursing home, we map the space. So we know exactly how the space looks like. And anytime the robot needs to be sent, let's say, to room 206, we can actually just go on the map and say, Paprika, go to room 206, or you can just touch on the map and say, go here, and she will go. So I'll show you a demo of, this is a video. You can see, that is Paprika, actually, in the video there, or Peppino. So there's LiDAR detectors and all you can see at the bottom, all connected. And here she goes. There. So she just goes around the entire facility and maps it. So I just took like 30+ seconds. This is our multicultural center. You can see my graduate student sitting there and running that program. And she wanted to go in that direction. Initially, she thought that there was, because of the glass, she could see through. But then she got closer and then realized that she cannot go through. So she changed her direction, and she's heading back. And
Let's
here,
see your map.
you can see the map she's creating, generating. So here is the map that she generated for our multicultural center. You can see the chairs, the tables. It's really good quality map. She did a fantastic job with that. So I'm going to do some demos over here. I'll run the reminiscence therapy, for instance.
Hello, I am Pepper.
Hi.
You have started the reminiscence therapy app. It's great to see you. What is the ID number of the resident?
2.
You have started reminiscence therapy for the resident. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Would you like to relive some of your memories from the past?
Yes.
My tablet screen displays a bunch of your memories. Just say the name of any one of those and we will visit that.
Graduation.
Great. You were such a great student. Remember the day of your graduation? It was such a memorable day. You and your friends clicked so many pictures. You all were having a wonderful time. Wait, let us have a look at some of the pictures.
So this is just for the demo purposes. So.
Your parents must be so proud of you. Do you want to reminisce more of your past?
No.
Great. I hope you had a wonderful time reliving your memories. Let me know whenever you want to revisit those memories.
Hi.
I would be
Hello.
happy to revisit them along with you. Have a great day ahead. Goodbye.
Yoga.
Okay. Hello. Hello, everyone. Let's begin our yoga session today. We are going to be in a comfortable seated position. You can all sit on your mat and cross your legs. Do what is comfortable for you. Okay, so let us sit and cross our legs. You see, I can't cross my legs, but you all please go ahead. Sit tall with your back straight. We will begin by linking our breath with our motion. Let me demonstrate our first exercise. Inhale while you take our arms up overhead. And exhale while you bring your hands to your heart. Just a nice way to center the mind to drop into the body, linking our breath with our motion.
So the little guy can actually lead lots of exercises. Upper body, strength training, yoga, lower body, dancing, and this is all elderly-friendly exercises. We did research and we came up with a set of exercises that elderly can do, and that's what he will lead. She can do a lot of joke apps. That's what we have programmed her for.
You don't hurt yourself. Now keep your hands relaxed on your knees and slowly inhale and exhale like this. We will repeat this 5 times. Now, close your eyes and inhale. Two.
That gives you an idea, right? That's sufficient.
3. Hi.
So we usually try to cover the camera. We program it so that we can cover the camera for 3 seconds, and it will pause whatever program it's running. If you'd like to see something else on this, you can see. Otherwise, I can move on to the next part, which is we're almost ending. You can ask me questions at any point, or as soon as I finish, you can ask me questions. So. Would you like to see some more demo on her? Yes. Okay, all right. Let's see.
Hi.
How about the stand-up comedy?
Hello. You all seem excited. Are you ready to roll? So, I went into Starbucks the other day, and one of the baristas asked me if I wanted any coffee. Can you believe that? Me? I said, no, I don't need coffee. I'm already completely wired. You know, somebody actually complimented me on my driving today. They left a little note on the windscreen. It said, "Parking fine." And I felt very nice. A robot, a Roomba, and a Norwegian walk into a bar. The Norwegian says, "Ouch, who put this bar here?" The Roomba just rolls right under the bar. The robot just watches and learns to better facilitate the global domination process later on. The bartender turns to them and asks, "What kind of establishment do you think this is?" Ouch. It hurts.
So we couldn't just make her do dirty
Error
jokes. We had to
722.
pretend
I
she's
can't
going
move
to
anymore.
crash and
Some
then
of my
turn
motors are too hot in my left leg. Please let me rest for a while. He did it. So, which one of you requested the dirty jokes? I can't believe you've gotten to this age without hearing one. I guess you were pretty sheltered. I am very innocent. I have never even been kissed. Of course, I do have a relationship with my charging plug that I should probably not talk about in polite company. It fits my socket perfectly. And really, lights my circuits. If you really want to hear dirty jokes, you should hang out with the nursing staff. They never seem to realize that I am always listening. Do you want to hear one of the jokes they were telling the other day?
Sure.
So Nurse, Smith. Yeah, Smith. The names have been changed to protect the filthy mind. Was telling Nurse Jones about a date that her younger sister, Julie, went on the other night. Well, the date went pretty well, and soon her companion brought out a bottle of little blue pills and started shaking it, optimistically.
So
Julie said, "You know, Tic Tacs are probably a good idea after all."
there's kids here, so. So let's do, I just have like 2 more slides and then we can get into questions. So all right. So the projected outcomes, actually what are the outcomes? The outcome is that we want to improve the quality of life for the people affected with dementia and also the elderly people. So if their quality of life is here, we want it to at least stay here, not go down, if not improve, using technology, using robots, using wearable sensors, and stuff like that. Projected outcomes is what I'm hoping is over a period of time, the prices of the robots would drop, and we would have every elderly person who would like to have a robot with them. Currently, they're pretty expensive, but over a period of time, that's what I'm hoping for. As a result, we would have, we will be able to keep our elderly at home for a longer period of time, try to maintain their quality of life, delay admission into assisted living and nursing homes and all, and ultimately reduce the costs of care. That's it. Questions?
Hi, so I found this particularly interesting because my grandmother passed away from Alzheimer's a couple years ago. And my grandfather is 93, and he lives with my dad, but my dad works during the day, and so my grandfather's home by himself. Like, if I wanted to buy him a robot right now, like, how much do they cost? No, I'm serious, because like this is a great tool.
Yes.
And I can really see it bringing a lot of joy because like he's hard of hearing, you know.
Yes.
He was a Korean War veteran, and they're loud, which is nice. They're simple, which is really important for elderly because, you know, he can't, they can't,
Yeah.
Technology's confusing. And it's nice because they do speak slowly, they speak clearly.
Yes.
What would be the process of getting a robot right now? Like if
So right now we are in the process of deploying at other nursing homes as well. And we haven't done in any individual's home, but we are open to the idea. So it will be around 40,000, 40 plus for one of the big ones. The little guys are a little less expensive, but they don't do as much as the bigger one does. Yes.
Dr. Khan, congratulations on all the work that you've done. This is amazing so far, and I know the future is unlimited. I've recently looked into text-to-speech, in which the quality of the voices are really good now. Have you considered making those changes so that they're more realistic? And the same way with the physical appearance of the robot, having a few years ago at the Ideas Festival, they had a demonstration of robot spouses or something similar, in which they made the point that the robots themselves need to look more like humans rather than robots. So the two questions are the voice and the physical appearance.
So as for the voice, we are doing a lot of work on that. You saw my team of students, So we have each student working on a project, and we have one of the students who's working on that. As for the robots looking more humanoid, what happens is I have a couple of students actually looking into robot acceptance. And acceptance, how accepting are they of robots? So there's two minds of thoughts here. One is that, the robots should not be very humanoid, because if they're looking very human-like, they find it creepy. And they feel like they're going to take away something humanly from them. So they're afraid of the robots. The more humanoid the robot looks, the more they're afraid. So that is one thought. The other one is, there are other people who feel like, no, I want my robot to be more humanoid, But majority of the people feel that it should not be very humanoid. It should be more cartoonist. The other thing is, when it's more human-like, the expectations rise. And technology is not there yet. So if it looks really human-like and doesn't act like a human, then people would reject it. So I think technology needs to improve a little more, and then, more humanoid robots will be accepted. So I'm thinking we are heading in that direction, hopefully, especially since the pandemic. People have been more open to robotics. Before that, they used to say, oh, she's going to unleash her robots on these poor, vulnerable people. Those were the comments that I would hear when I would apply for funding, So people are more open to it now. They realize the benefits, The robots can be doing mundane tasks that, are repetitive, that can annoy a caregiver, So for instance, if there is a person who needs to wear an oxygen mask all the time, instead of the daughter sitting there and reminding the person, Dad, please put on your mask. Dad, please put on your mask. After like 5 times of reminders, the 6th time the tone is going to change. She's going to get a little frustrated. She's got other things she needs to be tending to that are more important to look after her dad. So if the robot can be standing there, and every time the person takes off the mask, the robot can approach and joke about it and say, hey, John, you took your mask off again. Could you please put it on? The tone will never change. The speech will never change. It will still remain the same. So let the robots do those kind of mundane, repetitive tasks so that the caregivers, instead of spending 2 hours of grumpy time with the resident or the elderly person, they will spend maybe an hour of quality time. Yes. Okay.
Thank you. One thing about the robots that you didn't mention is they don't have to be paid.
Yes.
So I'm curious what your thoughts are if this starts to erode healthcare and the human touch in somebody's homes. If they can say, I don't have to pay staff anymore. I can get more of these robots. Is that something that you look at all?
We get that question all the time. So my ethicist, she also posed that question to me, what's going to happen? And I said, don't expect them to do a lot of things up until a few decades. Right now, they can do simple things, and they're not going to replace the actual human touch, It will be a while before we get there. And if a person is going to have that kind of an attitude that, let the robot take care of my uncle rather than, me having to pay somebody, well, that person is going to be a little careless, and even, whether the robot is there or not, I think that's the personality, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
We'll come to you next.
Hi, I was wondering, I work a lot in the mental health field, and we have programs that people can talk to online where they can talk about their mental health struggles.
Yes.
And we faced a lot of challenges with liability because it is sometimes a replacement for healthcare. I was wondering if you faced any challenges, or if you've thought at all about liability, like if a health emergency were to happen and the robot was present, or if they're in charge of getting the resident its medications. Have you thought at all about that?
So we are working actually a couple of things, One is like in an emergency, we have thought about the various scenarios, because the team that I showed you, we used to meet like every day for a few minutes, and then every week for like 2 hours to look at all the use case scenarios, and try to plan and predict and think about what's going to happen. And so we have some thoughts about that, we are looking into that. Simple things like, supposing there's an emergency, if the resident fell and the robot is there and somebody needs to be informed, the robot can immediately inform the clinicians, raise an alarm, make a lot of noise, and we can have a special bell that rings and then move out of the way. That's another thing we are programming it to do, so that it leaves space for, people, humans to come in. Tend to the person. So we are looking at all those scenarios. Another thing is we are working with UDAC. I'm not sure you are familiar with UDAC. It's like a Minnesota organization, and the organization is a nonprofit, and it helps adults with learning disabilities. So we are working in those areas also, because somebody who, supposing they're cleaning a table and continuously cleaning a table, the robot can approach and say, hey, I think that's clean enough. Now let's move on to the next task, So we are trying to do in other areas also, dabbling into other areas, but most of my research is with elderly and dementia. Yes?
So this is, again, I think a question you've probably heard a number of times before, but just if you could go back to the question of robot acceptance.
Yes.
To a group like this, or I'll just speak for myself, I look at these and I think they're enchanting, it's really cool, but I would probably find it more estranging than comforting to have something like that visiting me every day. And I'm wondering what kind of work you've done on this, and whether dementia changes the picture a little bit in the way that almost being autistic would, where you're not being judged if a word deserts you, or if you need somebody to speak louder. I don't know. I would, as remarkable as I find these things, I think I would find it really alienating to be tended to by one. But that's me now. So
Right.
if you could speak about that.
Right, and there are a lot of people who are concerned. We have done a study, and in that study we found that 33% of the people did not want a robot. They were like, no matter what, I will live alone, but I will not want the robot. But the rest of the people were super excited about the robot. They were like, can I take one home right now? So it depends on the excitement level. There have been some elderly, especially in my clinical trials, when I have the people come to my lab in my dementia-friendly living space, you can see, there is an audience that, is very resistive. So when the robot approaches them and tells them, it's time to take your medication, immediately the arms, are formed, and you can see their posture changing. It's like, you are a machine, you're not going to tell me what to do. Now the same thing, if you see like my 20-year-old, she came and she was going through the study. And the idea was that, she was supposed to pretend, but we forgot to tell her that she was supposed to pretend because everybody knew that that was a pretense medication. It was just glucose pill. And it had fallen down several times. She just took it and ate it immediately the first time the robot said, I would like you to take the medication. So I think it depends, Some people are more accepting than others. And I think when there are some elderly who are like, oh my gosh, I would love that robot. I will be able to share everything with that robot because the robot will not judge me and tell me, Mom, why are you doing that? Or, Aunt, why are you doing that? So it depends, I think, Yes.
So anyone that uses new technology is pretty familiar with some of the failure rates, right?
Yes.
The hardware failures, software update needs, firmware upgrades, that sort of thing. Can you speak to the lifespan of the robots from a hardware perspective, and then also the failure rates on the software, and whether there are concerns with something going wrong, the robot happens to hurt the patient, and what the contingencies are for that?
So far, that hasn't happened, touch wood. I hope that doesn't happen, but we are taking precaution for that. We did go through the IRB process, so we have all the risks that come along with using the robots. For instance, we keep the robot at least 3 feet away from the resident, so it's not very close. Even if the robot falls, it's not going to fall on an elderly person. There are other mental risks. We do not use robotics for later stage dementia. We do not, because we don't have the skills for that, Early onset of dementia, early stage dementia, yes, that is the area to use, because that's where we can try and maintain the quality of life, if not improve the quality of life. So if the person gets up in the morning, has breakfast every day at 8 a.m., then reads the newspaper, takes a shower, and goes for a run, let's say, and then the person forgot to go for a run, the robot can remind them and say, hey, usually you go for a run at this time. So those kind of things, the robot can be very helpful. We are working on the failure rates. We haven't completed that part of our study as yet. But so far, we haven't had any accidents, and I hope it stays that way. But this is a risk, and it's like any other risk,
This was a great talk. Thank you so much. Have you found any certain shared characteristics between the people that are very accepting of the robots versus the ones that are not?
So that study, we did one study about acceptance a few years ago, and it was a brief study. Now we are doing an in-depth study at all the nursing homes, because I have access to like 40 nursing homes now, so we are looking at that. And so far from that data, we are not able to tell much, but hopefully we will be able to soon, as soon as we have more data. Good question, thank you. Yes.
Thank you. So my question is, I think I wanted to touch a little bit on, this idea of will integrating AI and robots into healthcare erode medicine? And I think that's a very valid concern, and a lot of people are. But I think what we often forget is that we have a really, really serious provider shortage. We have a very serious clinician shortage, and those shortages are more intense in rural states like my state of Oklahoma, where I work with a group of scientists at OSU on very similar projects about how we can augment the practitioners' availability so that they can do they can be practicing at the top of
Yes.
of their credentials, as opposed to, you know, continuously reminding the patient
Right.
to put on the mask.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I think one thing that we forget is that, one, our population is growing, the need for care is growing, and the
Yes.
number of physicians is not growing fast enough. And so my question is for you is, how are you guys working with other organizations to source representative data to train these AI models? And are you guys open to working with other universities at the time right now?
Yes, there have been at least a couple universities that reached out, and yes, we would love to work with others. You know, the more collaborators, the better products. So yes, we would be more open to, we already have a big team, and we are looking into creating a center for research around this instead of a business. So, because I'm not in academia to make money. You know, I would have been in the industry if I were wanting to make money. So, so my idea is I don't want people who cannot afford it miss out on this opportunity if they want it, you know. So want to be able to make it available to everybody. So I think the time's up. Thank you all.